Welcome to Holiday Lighting 101. Now, before we introduce the experts on light set repair, we need to spend a few minutes reviewing some basic lighting principles. So consider this a prerequisite to how to fix a light set. That'll be Holiday Lighting 102. Having a good understanding of these basics will help you to better follow what Brian, Ken, and John will be showing you later. Light set failures can be frustrating, time-consuming, and expensive. Whether it be repairing a $50 yard decoration or a $300 pre-lit tree, knowledge of light set repair is something you need to have. Besides saving you time and money, this knowledge can make you a lighting pro. And what you are about to see is a step-by-step explanation of how to fix a light set, followed by actual repair tips covering some of the most popular lighting items. You know, the Christmas lights are over 100 years old, and they're an integral part of our holiday traditions. Could you imagine a Christmas without lights? Now, before we get into a discussion on the various forms of holiday light sets, let me give you a brief explanation of how these sets are constructed and how the electricity flows through them, or in the case of a failed set, why it doesn't. There are two ways light set circuitry can be constructed: parallel or series. Now, in a parallel circuit, an equal amount of current is delivered to each bulb, similar to the wiring in your house where you get exactly the same amount of voltage at each switch or outlet. Now, in a series circuit, the current must pass through each bulb and return to the source. And if one of those bulbs fail, the circuit is broken and bingo, the rest of the lights go out. Many of the larger light sets are actually a combination of the parallel and series design, basically having two or maybe three series circuits connected in parallel. And that's why you'll have, well, let's say a middle section going out while the rest of the string stays lit. You got that? Well, good. Well, let's move on. Holiday light sets fall into four basic categories. Now, rope lights or tube lights were introduced just in the last several years for holiday use. And as you can see, the bulbs are encased in a colored plastic flexible tubing, and they're not removable. In rope lights, when one bulb fails, an entire section may not light. It's important to note, rope lights are not designed to be repairable. Now, LED light sets create another style or look. But due to their advanced design, LED lights are pretty expensive. C7 and C9 sets are the traditional larger size light sets. And when you unscrew a bulb, it has no impact on the operation of the rest of the light set, because these are manufactured in parallel construction. Remember? Equal voltage going directly to each bulb independently. Now, miniature light sets are the most popular and economical light sets used during the holidays. Why, you see them everywhere, up and down the streets, in your town, in commercial displays, and of course, in and on homes all over the country. Well, they're used as individual light sets and as part of other holiday decor such as pre-lit trees. Well, they're so widely used that it only makes sense that we need to have a good understanding of how to quickly and easily bring these things back to life if they fail. And since they're used on pre-lit trees, yard decorations, hanging icicle lights, and net lights, you need to have a way to get at them without having to remove them or take them down. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Miniature light sets are constructed in series construction. And as we said before, the series construction requires the current to reach and flow through each bulb in the section before it can go to the next bulb so that they will all light. The majority of our education and repair efforts today will be targeted to the miniature light sets. Another thing you need to keep in mind about these miniature sets is that in order to produce them economically and in high volume, there's an inherent weakness in the design. Well, more about that later. So let's take a look at miniature light set construction. Miniature light sets use 120 volts. The voltage travels through the light set wires, the bulbs, and returns, completing the circuit. Any break or interruption in the flow of current through the wires or bulbs is going to cause the light set to fail. You got to think of a solid metal to metal path through the light set that creates this circuit. For example, the bulb wires not making a firm contact with the brass contacts in the bulb socket is enough to cause a current interruption and a light set failure. A plumbing analogy often helps to put the problem in perspective. The pipeline is open and flowing as long as there are no blockages. A missing bulb, twisted wires, or anything else that interrupts the current is the blockage that causes the current flow to stop. And the blockage needs to be repaired for the light set to work. Now let's talk about multiple section light sets. Let's look a little closer at why half or a third of a light set didn't operate. Now this goes back to the parallel series design I mentioned earlier. The basic miniature light set is manufactured in series construction with an average of 120 volts traveling to each section. A 50 light set with 2.5 volt bulbs uses approximately 120 volts. A 100 light set is actually two 50 light sets wired together but operating independently, each section getting the full 120 volts. A 150 light set is actually three 50 light sets wired together but operating independently. Once again, each section getting the full 120 volts via the parallel design. And that gets split up as it travels through each 50 bulb section. That's why you have so many wires in these long sets. Some are just carrying the parallel circuit individually to each section, and some form the series circuit in those sections. If you remove one bulb from any section of a 100 light set, you have interrupted the series of 50 bulbs in that one section only. In some cases, the manufacturer may use 35 lights or multiples thereof. A 35 light set uses 3.5 volt bulbs. A 70 light set is actually two 35 light sets wired together operating independently. A 140 light set is actually four 35 light sets wired together independently. This is why it's so important to replace bulbs with the correct voltage bulbs. If you put a lower rated bulb in a higher rated set, it's going to blow out. If you put a higher rated voltage bulb in a lower rated set, it will look dim and brown compared to the others. To further illustrate how light sets constructed in series use 120 volts, let's look at some examples. A 20 light set would use a 6 volt bulb. 20 bulbs times 6 volts equals 120 volts. A 10 light set would use a 12 volt bulb. That's common in tree toppers. 10 bulbs times 12 volts equals 120 volts. See, and you thought you wouldn't be using that high school math. Well, to complete your understanding of light set construction, you need to understand how a bulb works. Miniature bulbs work like the incandescent bulbs in your home. The first part of the bulb consists of a tungsten metal filament that glows within the glass envelope when heated. The current travels through the wires and through the filaments to complete the circuit needed to illuminate the set. Now keep in mind, bulbs don't last forever. A miniature light bulb has an average life expectancy of 2,000 hours. When the filament of a bulb burns out, it no longer acts as a conduit for the electricity and the light set may not function. And here's where that inherent design weakness comes in. It was really meant to keep the set glowing when one bulb fails. Miniature light sets with series construction are almost always designed with a feature that kicks in, allowing it to bypass the filament and take the current to the next bulb when a bulb burns out. It's called a shunt. It's a thin aluminum wire wrapped around the two copper posts supporting the filament, located just above the glass bead inside the bulb. Now there's an oxide coating that keeps the shunt from activating prematurely. But when the bulb fails, the current burns off the oxide coating and bypasses the bulb filament to complete the circuit and illuminate the balance of the set. In essence, the shunt is designed to complete the metal-to-metal connection necessary for the light set to work again. Now we have covered the basics of Lighting 101, and you have the foundation to continue our discussion of light set repair. So let me introduce you to the experts that will walk you through the repair of light sets. They have repaired tens of thousands of light sets dating back to 1989 when they manufactured their first pre-lit tree in Taiwan. They have experienced firsthand the potential problems that you may encounter, and they are well qualified to share what they have learned through the years. Meet the light keepers, John, Brian, and Ken.